Have you noticed something strange? You walk into a grocery store with $100 in your pocket. You buy a few bags of food, maybe some household essentials, and somehow the money is gone. A few years ago, that same $100 filled an entire shopping cart. Today, it barely fills two bags. Coffee costs more. Rent costs more. Insurance costs more. Fast food costs more. Even things that used to be cheap somehow aren't anymore. It's easy to blame greedy companies, or politicians, or inflation. But the real story is much bigger than a few higher price tags. Because what you're experiencing isn't just inflation. It's the collision of several economic forces happening at the same time. And once you understand them, you'll never look at prices the same way again. It all started with a crisis. When COVID spread across the world in 2020, entire economies suddenly slammed on the brakes. Businesses closed. Factories stopped producing. Airplanes stopped flying. Millions of people lost their jobs almost overnight. Governments faced an impossible decision. If families stopped earning money, spending would collapse. If spending collapsed, businesses would fail. If businesses failed, unemployment would explode. So governments did something extraordinary. They created enormous amounts of money and sent financial support directly to households and businesses. Central banks also pushed interest rates close to zero. Borrowing became incredibly cheap. The goal was simple: keep money moving, keep people spending, keep the economy alive. And at first it worked. Consumers had cash. Businesses survived. Financial markets recovered much faster than many economists expected. But there was one problem. Actually, several. Money was flowing. Products weren't. Factories were still operating below capacity. Shipping containers were stuck in the wrong ports. Microchips became scarce. Cargo ships waited offshore for weeks. Simple products suddenly became difficult to manufacture. The world wanted to buy more. The world couldn't produce enough. That's when prices started climbing. Imagine a concert with 100 tickets. Now imagine 1,000 people trying to buy them. The tickets don't become more valuable overnight. There's simply not enough supply. The same thing happened to cars, furniture, electronics, building materials, food. Even toilet paper became strangely difficult to find. For a while, it felt almost absurd. People weren't necessarily buying more because they needed more. Sometimes they were buying more because they were afraid there wouldn't be enough later. Fear created even more demand, which pushed prices even higher. Economists call this demand pull inflation. But that wasn't the only force at work. Then came energy. Modern economies run on energy. Oil powers transportation. Natural gas heats homes. Electricity powers factories. When energy becomes more expensive, almost everything becomes more expensive. A loaf of bread doesn't just require wheat. It requires tractors, fuel, factories, packaging, delivery trucks, grocery stores. Every step consumes energy. Raise energy prices, and the cost quietly spreads through the entire economy. Then wages started rising. At first, that sounded like good news. Workers demanded higher pay after years of stagnant incomes. Many businesses agreed. But businesses rarely absorb those costs forever. Instead, many simply increase prices. Higher wages, higher prices. Higher prices, requests for even higher wages. It's a cycle economists call the wage price spiral. Not because workers are the problem. Not because businesses are the problem. Because every participant is simply reacting to everyone else. Then there's another force that's far less obvious. Corporate pricing power. During periods of inflation, consumers expect prices to rise. That expectation creates an opportunity. If customers already believe prices are going up, some companies raise prices even more than their costs actually increased. Sometimes because they need to, sometimes because they can. Not every company behaves this way. But history shows that periods of widespread inflation often allow businesses with strong market power to expand their profit margins without attracting as much attention. Consumers blame inflation. Businesses quietly collect larger profits. And both things can be true at the same time. Meanwhile, housing became its own crisis. For years, many countries built fewer homes than their growing populations needed. When mortgage rates were extremely low, demand exploded. People rushed to buy homes. Prices soared. Later, interest rates climbed rapidly. Ironically, higher interest rates made monthly mortgage payments even more expensive. So even when home prices cooled, affordability didn't improve much. Rent followed the same pattern. If buying becomes harder, more people rent. Higher demand pushes rents higher. Housing became expensive from almost every direction. Then there's something even more uncomfortable. Our expectations changed. Streaming services, food delivery, 2-day shipping, premium smartphones, luxury coffee, subscription everything. Many conveniences that once felt optional gradually became part of everyday life. Not because we needed them, because we became used to them. Inflation isn't always about paying more for the same life. Sometimes it's about quietly upgrading our lifestyle without realizing it. The monthly subscriptions pile up. The delivery fees seem small. The premium versions become normal. One expense doesn't matter much. 20 of them do, which creates a strange illusion. Some prices genuinely increased. Some lifestyles quietly became more expensive. And most people experience both at the same time. There's another reason everything feels more expensive. Our brains don't measure prices objectively. We compare them to what we remember. If you paid $2 for coffee 5 years ago, $5 today feels outrageous, even if your income also increased. Psychologists call this price anchoring. The old price never completely disappears from your mind. Every new purchase feels like you're losing something, not just money, the past. So, will prices ever return to where they were? Probably not. History suggests that most prices rarely move backward in a meaningful way. Inflation usually slows. It doesn't reverse. That's why central banks don't try to eliminate inflation completely. They try to keep it predictable. A little inflation encourages spending and investing. Too much creates instability. Too little can slow the economy. It's an uncomfortable balancing act. Which brings us back to the question everyone keeps asking. Why does everything feel so expensive now? Because money changed. Supply chains changed. Energy changed. Housing changed. Consumer behavior changed. Corporate pricing changed. And our expectations changed too. The uncomfortable truth is that there isn't one villain. There isn't one switch governments can flip. There isn't one company responsible for every higher price. What we're living through is the result of millions of decisions made by governments, businesses, consumers, investors, and central banks all interacting at once. The price tag is simply the final number we see. The real story happened long before we reach the checkout. And perhaps the most important question isn't whether prices will ever go back down. It's whether we're entering a world where expensive simply becomes the new normal.